Hey, welcome to Frequelize This, everybody. I'm John, and we've got Rich.
Hello.
And Dave.
Hey.
And today, so we're gonna rank the Jethro Tull albums, but not just the Jethro Tull albums. We're gonna work in Ian Anderson's solo albums in there, and Ian Anderson basically is Jethro Tull, especially at this point. Still, there's plenty of good music in their history, and then obviously they've been coming back, making new music. So we are going to go through the Jethro Tull albums from worst to best. To be honest, this is my list.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the Jethro Tull super fan of the group. So I put together their list. And then Rich and Dave are here as the peanut gallery and commentators. And they're going to let me know where I'm wrong. And we'll duke it out. And then also you viewers, let us know your favorites and where I'm wrong as well. So we are going to go ahead and get
comments about the best Tull album being "And Justice for All" either. You don't want to talk about no Jethro Tull Metallica crap here.
Right. Everybody knows that story by now, right? And if they don't, we'll cover it later. But you know what's cool? When I'm watching YouTube, Jethro Tull is still getting new fans. So, that's really something. And I think that's really awesome. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. They get teased a lot or whatever, and there's some fairness to that. Not quite as pretentious and self-indulgent, I don't think, as like Emerson, Lake and Palmer got at their peak of that madness. And here's something that's worth noting, for folks who are sort of like, I don't even know Jethro Tull. Like, why do people still talk about Jethro Tull, 50 years later from, some of their all-time classic albums? And honestly, back in like 1973, they were the biggest band in the world for a couple of albums run that they had.
Well, I think they're one of the first bands to record with a full orchestra, right? They did something, I do believe, with either the London Philharmonic or the LA Philharmonic back in like 1970.
Really? Even before Deep Purple?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. That was in the old LA radio DJ, Uncle Joe Benson, had all these great discography books.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I read that at.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So they were a huge deal in popularity there for a while. And then, yeah, they did. And ended up with a backlash. And then they kind of went and changed their style a bit and regrouped, but we'll get into that. We'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and start with going on the list here. All right. So first of all, we've got Under Wraps.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. Oh, the fact that you actually own that. Wow.
Yep.
You're
Under Wraps
for them, aren't you?
Is that?
Are you a completist with regard to Jethro Tull?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
On physical media, lots of B-sides, imports, things like that. Not so much lately, though. I really got soured by when Ian fired Martin.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I haven't really bought physical media. I haven't bought any concert tickets. But even still, I love this music,
Yeah.
And I love this band. But except for this, I don't love this.
Yeah.
So this is crap.
You're starting in the right spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the general consensus, ask any Tull fan, they're going to pick Under Wraps as the worst album.
Yeah. And really there's only one track on here that's stood the test of time, and that is Under Wraps. And that is because it is an acoustic folk kind of ditty, hearkening back to, a Dunman Gill or a Nursey or whatever, some of those, just him and the guitar.
Yep.
So that one is, worth the price of admission. Kind of. Yeah.
If you find it in like the $3 bin.
Yeah. But the rest of the album is really synth. It's kind of a synth. I don't know. It's garbage. Let's move on. Okay.
Oh,
here we go. Jethro.com.
Mm.
Again, so this was like 1999, right? This is arguably the last studio album before the super long hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and that's if you don't count the Jethro Tull Christmas album, which came out in 2003. I think Wikipedia might consider that a Jethro Tull studio album. I don't have it on this list. It's a lot of old tunes, I think, re-recorded, but then also there might be some new Christmassy material on there.
There's like 7 new original Christmas songs and instrumentals.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. Actually, it's really quite good.
It's wonderful
because of its sort of not all new material compilation nature. I didn't keep it on the list. So for me, the last studio album we got before that long hiatus, it was jtoll.com, and it's not very good. In fact, gosh, I'm kind of like looking at the track list and I'm wondering what's good here. Okay, couple of good songs. Okay, Nothing at All, and Black Mamba, and Far Alaska. So there you go. There's a couple of tracks that are worth your time if you go check out jtoll.com.
Which, by the way, is now a hopelessly dated title.
Oh,
anybody who named their album, who threw a .com or a Y2K joke in their title, they should have talked to marketing, because that's just not good.
It is an adventure in how can an old guy sound old? I mean, that choice, wow.
Yeah, it would be like saying, make it a TikTok reference right now if they release a new album.
Do it. I mean, it's one of those things. Do it lyrically, do it cleverly, and typically, Ian Anderson is known for his cleverness. This was not clever.
No.
Right.
This was it felt like a vain attempt to sound relevant and current.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, next we have Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. For me, the only thing that's worth hearing on here is Salamander, which again is another one of Ian's kind of acoustic, folk ballad type of deal.
Yeah.
Similar to the Under Wraps thing. The title track's not too bad. Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die.
I mean, they got plenty of radio play back in the day, so
yeah, I would, this is one that for me, I would rank it a little bit higher on the merits of the title track itself. I do particularly like the title track. Yeah, the rest of the album is kind of forgettable, so it's not going to go very much higher. But I really do, for whatever reason, that title track for me works.
All right.
There it is. And yeah, Salamander. Great track. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, Ian Anderson's Thick as a Brick 2. Okay. Have you guys even heard that thing?
I must confess I have not.
Nope, I've avoided it.
Yeah. It just it just didn't do anything for me. That was one where I didn't get a chance to come back and revisit it for this video, but I can tell you that there's a couple of good tracks on here. So like the Pebbles instrumental, I liked that. I liked Banker Bets, Banker Wins, Adrift and Dumbfounded, Power and Spirit. And the last track, the final track, What Ifs, Maybes, and Might Have Beens. So there's some good stuff on there. But there's a lot of in between that just isn't rising to the occasion. So, and I don't have a physical copy of that, but yeah, Thick as a Brick 2. It's worth listening to. Definitely worth listening to. It's not all bad, but just not all there. All right, let's see. What do we have next? The Zealot Gene. All right. That's the new one. Or no, that's not the new one. That is the second most new one.
Second new one.
And that was the one that sort of surprised us, where it was like, what? Jethro Tull is back?
Yeah.
And it's, it's okay. Again, like, I love Jethro Tull, so I'm going to look for things that I like there. So the first two tracks are pretty cool. Mrs. Tibbetts is a reference to Mrs. Enola Gay Tibbetts, who was the mother of the pilot of the Enola Gay, which is the airplane that dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima in World War II. The bomb being called Little Boy. So there's a lyrical reference to Mrs. Tibbetts' Little Boy.
Because
and it's a double reference, right? Mrs. Tibbetts' Little Boy is the captain of the plane, and then Little Boy is the bomb. So it's it's got clever wordplay in it. I really like the lyrics, actually, the way he does that. It takes a second. You got to really read the lyrics. For me, anyway, I had to really read the lyrics, not just listen to the song, to pick all this stuff up. That's what it was about. So I liked that. And he kind of does that on this album. That's probably the strength of this album, is his lyric writing. And then the other one that I liked was the portrayal of Joshua Kind, which is a kind of a real veiled reference to Judas Iscariot, betraying Jesus. My main problem, though, is musically. Musically, I didn't find the album very interesting, and of course, his voice is shot now.
Yeah.
So that's really why it's low. But I do recommend listening to it, though, and kind of paying attention to his lyricism there. That's pretty good. All right, let's see what's next.
This actually, before that, that begs the question, with all this talk that we've been seeing recently about artificial intelligence, do you think somebody would be able to take something like the Zella Jane and quote unquote fix Ian's voice so it's more whole than what it has been the last 25 years?
Interesting idea. I mean, we definitely see that on YouTube, where people are training these AI models to sound like artists. Could be done. Does anybody want to hear that, though?
That's the question. Is it could be done, but should it be done?
Jurassic Park quote, right? You spent all this time wondering whether or not you could, that you didn't stop to think whether or not you should.
Yeah. Because his voice has had a journey. I mean, it really has. I mean, after Under Wraps, and he had the real injury where he had to really take time off. And this is in '84. This is before the, a string of albums from the late '80s to the late '90s, and then these albums that we've been having the past 10 years, where that includes some Ian solo stuff. It's his voice has definitely become a character of the album he's going to deliver. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that he would write the same songs.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's writing a little bit to what he's going to be able to do with his voice.
Well, he said that in interviews too, that he would not have been able to write the songs that he wrote in the late '70s and the early '70s, and he said vice versa. Is like, I wouldn't be able to rewrite the same kind of songs in the first phase of the career that he did in the third or fourth phase of the band. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's take a look at what's next. Rock Float. Okay, that is the new one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't have that one as a physical copy either. It is enjoyable. It's musically more interesting than the Zella Gene. It's got some good guitar work on it. But again, it's just not, for me, and I'll admit a little bit of the low rating for these albums could be related to me missing Martin as the guitar player. To me, he's always just been such a core part of Jethro Tull. So There might be a little bit of that, but some recommended tracks on this are Wolf Unchained, Trickster and the Mistletoe, Guardian's Watch, and where's the Navigators? That one's good too. So, and again, I encourage people to listen to it at least once. It's not bad, but it's just not up to par with 21 more albums we have on this list.
Yeah. It was definitely a step in the right direction from the Zealot Gene. I mean, that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it instantly more. The Zealot Gene, the only way I could get into it was to really study the lyrics. Whereas, Rock Flute, you just put it on and it was like, okay, yeah, this sounds like Jethro Tull.
In a strange way, it almost feels more relaxed, or I think the Zealot Gene felt forced for some reason. It's just like, well, we're going to do it. Like maybe they're rusty, maybe there was something, but it felt like, and maybe it was just the fact that, you've got this period where you're not really getting Tull. And then here's the new one, and there's probably higher expectations and less was delivered. And then surprise, we're going to reload and do another one the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they kind of exercised the right, creative muscles, and it was and kind of headed in a better direction.
I totally agree with you. And it makes me think, and we've got an album coming up here. We're going to have Ian's. We have Ian's solo album sprinkled in. There's an Ian Anderson solo album coming up here that I would argue would be much better if it was billed as a Jethro Tull album. Mm-hmm. And the Zealot Gene to me feels more like it should be an Ian Anderson solo album.
Sure.
Okay. But so I'll highlight that when we get to it. All right, let's see what's next. Okay. Roots to Branches, which, I do have that one.
Yeah.
And that was 96-ish, I want to say. And again, it's pretty good stuff. 95? Okay. Now, this one has a great track on it called Valley. Highly recommend that. Like I say, some of the albums we've been covering before this, Thick as a Brick 2, Zealot Gene, Rock Flute. To me, there weren't any real standout tracks where it was like, this one track makes it worth seeking this out and checking this out. But on Roots to Branches, Valley, definitely a highlight that everybody should check out. Out of the Noise is fun. That's a cool one. Dangerous Veils. Beside Myself. Oh, man. I haven't heard that one in a long time, but I totally can remember how that goes. It's an impactful song emotionally, I remember. So, yeah, there's some good stuff there. Now, would you, Crest of a Knave rocked. Rock Island kind of continued that rock stuff. There's some hard rock on those albums. Catfish Rising was the next one that came out after those two and got a little bit more bluesy and a little bit more folksy. And then I think this is the next proper album.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
This one, if I remember right, does this one lose a little bit of the blues that was on Catfish Rising and is a little bit more on the folky side, almost like it belongs in the late 70s?
Yeah, it leans in that direction a little further, as I recall.
Yeah. So I kind of want to say that if you like the late 70s Songs from the Wood, Heavy Horses, that maybe there's stuff here for you to like. Although I love those albums, and here I have this one rated pretty low at 21, so I don't know.
It has that flavor, but it doesn't do it quite as well as those albums, I'd say, because I do. I mean, the Heavy Horses, for me, that's a great one. Songs for the Wood, yeah, great. But yeah, it kind of lends itself to, but trying to do it in the mid 90s as opposed to doing it in the late 70s, there's certain things that just the aesthetic in the world doesn't quite hit right the same way.
Yeah, right.
You can make it, you could do it in that era in the 90s, but the problem is that they've done it so well in the late 70s. They set such a high standard If you throw on Roots and Branches, your brain's gonna automatically compare it to Mouse for the Water, Heavy Horses, or even Stormwatch.
Yeah. My memory with this album as well was that they sounded a little tired.
Yeah.
So, all right, but definitely has some stuff to check out. All right, let's see what's next. A.
The much maligned A.
Here it is.
I was really surprised that this was this high on your list.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of my list. So I have a database and I rate all of my songs and all of that. So this list started out being averages, being based on the average of all the ratings of the tracks. So A was lower in that regard. I actually bumped up A though. I was listening to it the other day, and there's two standout tracks that are totally worth the price of admission. And that is Black Sunday and the Pine Martins Jig, which is a folky thing. And this album is synthesizers. It's 1980. It's Jethro Tull trying to get into this whole synthesizer thing of the 80s, and it just doesn't quite work. I have drum machines, I think, on here, that kind of stuff. But the Pine Martins Jig is a callback to the folk trilogy, and Black Sunday just rocks. And especially if you ever check out the remix of Black Sunday that they did on the 25th anniversary box set, cranks up the guitar in that remix, and it is a hard rock blast. But as it is on A, it's still really good. And I want to say, is it Eddie Jobson that's doing all this keyboard work? Yeah, it's great. He's an asset here. So even though this gets maligned for being all synthy, Eddie is good, and there is some cool stuff on here. I listening to the first track, Crossfire, the other day, and I was like, hey, this really isn't that bad. So yeah, I bumped it up a little bit. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would definitely have to give it more of a listen again to make that move. It was weird. Actually, I'm trying to remember how recent it was, because Prog Magazine did kind of a cover on A within the last year or two or something like that, and kind of talked through the history of how I guess initially this was an Ian Anderson solo album that got basically rebranded in order to try to sell it better. Which I think lends itself to its negative history, because a fan might go, well, that's not fair. I mean, that's, don't call it a Tull album if it wasn't intended to be a Tull album. And, I think there was some controversies with regards to how different band members were treated in the course of that. I don't have all that detail readily available, but I'd have to listen to it further. And I know I do personally, I at times have struggled with kind of the 70s, especially the 70s prog guys and what they did in the 80s. That's a rough period for me. and I have to sometimes set aside. I mean, and it's not, it's Genesis does the same thing for me. Yes does the same thing for me. And I have to keep going back and can I treat these for what they are? And see if I can enjoy them for what they are. And for myself, I struggle with that. It is. And so I don't know that I would rank it that high if I went through this again, but it'd be interesting. I think you're prompting me to kind of give it a deeper listen. Have you listened to, Stephen Wilson did a remix of the album?
Yeah.
Have you listened to that, and how does that compare? Or
yeah, I think that's what I was checking. Yeah.
Is that what you're talking? That's what the one you were referencing?
Well, no, not for the 25th anniversary box set.
No. Okay, no. Yeah.
That was done all the way back in '93.
Okay.
And I don't know who remixed that, but Stephen Wilson's remix of A, yeah, it's better. It makes it better.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. It makes it. The original A is really thin sounding. and I think Stephen Wilson did a good job of filling it out a little bit more. All right, let's see what's next. It's Catfish Rising. And that's this one here. So this is 1991-ish, I believe. And this one was the third album after the big comeback in 1987 that Jethro Tull had with Crest of a Knave. So this was the third part of a quite successful run where they were sort of back. They're back. And those two albums, I think I mentioned, have a decent amount of hard rock on them. This one keeps that up a little bit, but gets more bluesy, a little bit quieter and a little bit more bluesy in places. There's some good tracks here. And on a rating by rating or song by song rating average, this was a little bit lower. I bumped this one up manually in this list a little bit more. Mainly because of a couple of standout tracks. Rocks on the Road being one of those.
Yep.
It's a great track. The other, I'm a sucker for Still Loving You Tonight, which is a cheesy, sappy ballad. And Sparrow on a Schoolyard Wall. That's a good one. When Jesus Came to Play. So there's some good stuff there. There's some clunkers though, or some ones that just don't hold up. For me, Roll Your Own, Thinking Round Corners, Doctor to My Disease, that is not holding up for me. So it is fairly low on the list. And I felt that way kind of immediately when the album came out too. I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but it definitely felt like it was a step down from what we'd gotten before. And I'll admit, I mean, obviously we haven't seen Rock Island yet here. I think there's a lot of people that don't like Rock Island. I think I might like it a lot more than a lot of other people do. Okay, let's see what's next. Benefit. Benefit of 1970. Rich, are you shaking your head there?
I am shaking my head. I have this way higher than you. It's not a top 5, but it is a top 10.
So this has 3 absolutely great songs on it. And to put it at number 18, not sure what I'm doing there, but
yeah.
This is one
that I think you think your clickers are actually good.
This is one where it is purely the average of the songs. I didn't revisit it this week to see if it should move around, but With You There to Help Me, To Cry You a Song, Saucity, You're a Woman, essential Tull. Those are essential Tull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess maybe.
I also appreciate, the first three tracks, because I mean it starts off with you there to help me, which is an all-time banger from this band. But I also like Nothing to Say because it really kind of just kind of carries that bluesy kind of influence from their earlier stuff in there, but not without being too bluesy. And then with the remix of the album, and they bumping the track up to higher on the album, Alive and Well and Living In, which actually I don't think was on the original CD of this. And that's a great song as well.
It's not there.
Yeah. On the remix, they actually went back and they repressed it and did the UK version.
Okay.
So I would go ahead and check, and I think that's why I may like Benefit a little bit more, because they don't have Teacher on the UK version. And I will say Teacher is one of my least favorite Jethro Tull songs. So you take that song off of this and replace it with Alive and Well and Living In, which is a great quasi-acoustic song. And that just bumps up that album rating for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, my physical copy is definitely the old US one where Teacher is in spot number 8 there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, on your record, I do believe Inside is the third track.
That's it goes Nothing to Say and then into Inside. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they drop Inside into where Teacher is on the UK version.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just makes for a more that little change just makes for a more cohesive listening experience.
Okay. Inside's a good track. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, all right. So this one, this is probably a miss for me then. I'll admit it. That might need to be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But here it is.
I would check out the UK version.
Okay.
I think you'll like it more than the US version.
Right on.
That
Definitely.
little change.
Okay. Let's see what's next. Broadsword and the Beast.
Or as you like to call it on that list, Broadsword and the Best.
I did do that. Oh, how fast can I fix that? I can't fix that super fast. All right. So Broadsword and the Best. I must have been thinking of the album cover when I typed Best instead of Beast. I don't know. So I got the T-shirt. I was the dork that was walking around with the T-shirt of this back in the day. I still have that T-shirt. I don't know. This came out around my Dungeons and Dragons period or whatever.
I was gonna say he looks like a level 7 bard or something.
Yeah, I mean this is ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you got the whole fantasy font kind of thing going on there, but there's some pretty good tracks though, which is why it's where it is. Really, the Clasp is good. Fallen on Hard Times. To me, that's for me, that's a Jethro Tull classic.
Mm-hmm.
Broadsword, the song Broadsword, I really dig that one. And Cheerio, for me, Cheerio is I don't know, that's just such a cool closer that again, so Broadsword is the next one after A. A was this spectacular disaster of trying to be in the 80s. And then Broadsword was a little bit of like, what if we took that folk stuff we were doing in the 70s and mixed it with the synth stuff that we were doing on A?
Yeah.
And doesn't really work really well, but there's some good tracks that came out of it. Here we go. War Child, which is here. Looks like that. I'd never liked this album cover. I'll take the Broadsword album cover over this any day.
Yeah.
But some good tracks here. This one is such a letdown, though, after the high of the back-to-back album. You know, one song is the entire album, Thick as a Brick, and a Passion Play. That was the period where Jethro Tull was the biggest band in the world. And then War Child comes out and just stopped all the momentum they had.
Yeah.
So standout tracks, though, Skating Away on the Thin Ice of a New Day and Only Solitaire. And if you're of a certain type, you might enjoy Bungle in the Jungle.
That's the other song, man. I mean, I love me some Toll, but when Bungle in the Jungle comes on the radio, I can't turn the dial fast enough.
And I remember liking it when I was young, when I first was discovering Jethro Tull. I thought it was fun.
It's the science, and you're like, ooh, snakes and tigers.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It does not hold up really well for me. Not a great album, but the highlights are high. So Skating Away is so good.
It's brilliant.
And Only Solitaire, that's another one of his little just minute and a half, just him and an acoustic guitar, right? One of those little ditties.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't that a leftover from the failed sessions, the Chateau Disaster tapes when they were trying to do a Passion Play the first time?
Yeah,
think that's a holdover from those sessions, maybe.
Is the one that actually made it onto an album. Because a lot of other stuff that wound up on the Nightcap import,
right,
was kind of just shelved for like 20 years.
Yeah. We're about to go into the top 15, and I just remembered while we've been recording this, I remembered that I left out an Ian Anderson solo album. I want to say 1983. It was called Walk Into Light. So I forgot about that one entirely, and I left that off of this list. I believe it was another exercise in trying to be with the times on the synthesizers and stuff. Obviously wasn't memorable at all. So slot that in anywhere you want here in this 16 to 27. My memory is that I liked it better than Under Wraps and jtoll.com. So maybe it's somewhere around 25.5 or something.
Right.
But if you're a completist, go check out Ian Anderson's Walk Into Light. Let's go. Okay, Ian Anderson, Homo Eroticus. Why is this so high, you might ask? I was listening to this today. This is 2014, I believe. And I was like, yeah, this is the one I was referring to. This should have been a Jethro Tull album. He should have called it a Jethro Tull album. It's got guitars on it. It's got all the common staples and essential ingredients for a Jethro Tull album. For me, I like to listen to it in that same vein when I'm in that mood. But boy, there are a lot of 4-star tracks on here. I use a 5-star scale. A lot of 4-star tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 4-star tracks and 2 4.5-star tracks. So that's why this gets so high. There's 15 tracks on the album. I recommend the Turnpike Inn, Tripudium Ad Bellum. It's solid. It's pretty good. So don't know why he did that as an Ian Anderson solo album. I don't know if 2014 was only a few years after he fired Martin. I don't know if maybe there were some legal things going on. I don't know if that's also why Thick as a Brick 2 was billed to Ian, or if he was just trying to distance himself from the name. I don't know. But we're back to him embracing the Jethro Tull name now. Long lost Jethro Tull album. I recommend it. Okay.
Right.
Stormwatch. Kind of a strange cover. It took, honestly, covers are a big deal. This cover made this album take go lower on my list as far as digging in on it and getting into it back in the day. I don't know. It's not terrible, but it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And I don't like this computer font stuff up here because this is considered part 3 of the Folk trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think if you swap the font, it's a bit. I mean, I like the cover other than the font.
Yeah.
I think the font makes it a mixed mesh of what are you doing?
Right.
Maybe they should have taken the font they used for Broadsword and the Beast and put it on there.
Yeah.
Actually, that would fit better. Stylistically, that would fit better.
There you go. Yeah. So there's some good stuff here. This is the lesser, favorite of the 3 Folk trilogy albums. The real standout being that's held up the test of time and has appeared on Greatest Hits and been, a staple of Jethro Tull's catalog is Dun Ringio. Great track. I really like the soft ballad elegy that finishes the album. But again, you see it here at number 14, just not a stellar album, but it's recommended. Okay, let's see what's next. This was... Okay, Rich, how do you feel about that?
I'm actually kind of surprised that you ranked it as high as you did.
Yeah, it's almost like, should this be swapped with Benefit?
I would do that. Because
I've never been
Never been a big fan of this was. I mean, just it really showcases the band's blues roots, and they do a couple of blues standards. But the thing is that a lot of British bands of that era were also doing the same British standards, and they did them better.
Yeah.
Like Cat Squirrel is on there. If you really want to hear a British band knock Cat Squirrel out of the park, you put on the Cream edition that they did on their first album. And that's the fit of kind. This is just an inferior copy of that. Yeah. What do you think, Dave? I know you have both albums.
Yeah, I definitely. If you're looking to comparing in that early era, Benefit's a better album.
Yeah.
This feels to me like Jethro Tull before they found their stride and really understood who they were or who they were going to be, which isn't unusual for a debut album. You jump out of the gate and you're trying to get your feel, and they're not that far off from it, but it's not as if they hit a home run right out of the gate. So yeah, it's good, it's enjoyable, but there's better. And specifically looking at that early period, yeah, Benefit I would bump well higher than this was.
Okay. That is very, very fair. And so I did.
Nice.
And I fixed the Broadsword and the Beast spelling.
All right, good.
Okay, so we'll do that. We'll put This Was back here at 18, and we'll put Benefit up here at 13. Because yeah, I was looking at my ratings for these songs, and what I did was on This Was, I treated it as a much more even listening experience, I believe.
All right.
So lots of tracks got 4 stars, but nothing got really more than that. Whereas on Benefit, I had 3 tracks that were absolute bangers, and then all the in-between tracks got rated kind of low. So I guess for me, I originally felt like Benefit was a little more uneven than this was. But boy, those 3 standout tracks on Benefit are just so great. So yeah, I think this is a good swap here.
Yeah. I really think that's why, I know you like that model and stuff, but you just can't base something like this on pure analytics.
Yeah.
You have to go with, intangibles like human instinct and just, the overall experience, mood, stuff that can't necessarily be quantified by an Excel sheet.
Right. But it gave us a starting point from which to have this conversation. So
yeah.
So we had to start somewhere, but I'm glad that you guys helped me see the error of my ways, and we we fixed that one there.
We're here to help.
All right, let's see. Rupees Dance. All right. So I like this album, as you can see. To me, we've got a couple of standouts here with Urology. Well, the opening track, Caliandra Shade, the Cappuccino song. Great song for me. Urology. Griminelli's Lament. I don't know if I'm pronouncing some of these right. Birthday Card at Christmas, the closing. Yeah, this was during a period of more of a singer-songwriter approach, I would call it. A little more folksy, a little more laid-back acoustic, a little bit more coffee shop. And I liked it. A lot of this album worked for me. I don't know, did you guys have this one? Do you remember this one?
Vaguely.
That's not one of his solos that is on my radar. Yeah, I think I vaguely recall it, but I don't know it well.
Okay. Well, check it out.
Right.
All right, let's see what's next. It's Rock Island, which is here. So, yeah, a lot of people don't really like this one. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. Crest of a Knave was the current album that was out, or that was about to come out, when I fell in love with Jethro Tull.
Okay.
Right.
So I was introduced to Jethro Tull by someone older than me, and I fell in love with the band, and I was like, what? They're still around? Like, and Rolling Stone or whatever magazines I was looking at had this ad for, the upcoming album or the just released brand new album, Crest of a Knave. So Crest of a Knave has a real treasured spot, I guess, for me because of that. And then Rock Island just continued that. And so I saw Jethro Tull live on tour in support of, this album.
Mm-hmm.
When you have those kind of experiences, these things can really become a favorite, even though critics and the rest of the world might not put it nearly as high.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but for me, I don't know why I like that Big Riff and Mando song so much. The title track, Rock Island, I don't know,
Yeah.
I love that. I really like Heavy Water, Ears of Tin, The Whalers' Dues, Strange Avenues. These albums got criticized for being Dire Straits albums.
All right.
And rightfully so, a little bit there. And Strange Avenues, I think, does that. Really sounds like it should be a Dire Straits song. But I didn't care because I also loved Dire Straits and the Brothers in Arms album at this time. And
yeah,
and for me, the songwriting was good. And it just so happened that the way Ian's voice was recovering from surgery and from the damage that had been done earlier, he was sounding a little bit like Mark Knopfler here when he was doing a softer song, more of a ballad. But anyway, yeah, what do you guys think of Rock Island? I love it.
It's pretty decent. I mean, it was the lesser album when you compare it to Crest of a Knave.
Yeah.
But it was, like we talked about earlier, it was better than Catfish Rising. And it's been a while since I listened to it. But this is the one where Kissy Willie is on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, come on. We were in college when this came out, and we thought the lyrics were funny. And
yeah.
Still, they're funny. So, it was like that cheeky sense of humor that Ian Anderson has always had. And if you've ever seen Jethro Tull or Ian Anderson live, you know that humor is part of who his personality is. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. And it there's a fine line between the part of us and him that never quite outgrows the 13-year-old boy and a dirty old man. There's a fine line there. And for my wife, she can't do Jethro Tull. She falls on the dirty old man side of things. And I think the visual, he looks the part. And then when she has overheard Jethro Tull playing, in the house or whatever, sometimes she just goes, "What is he doing?" And I'll try to tell her, like, "Oh, imagine this song coming out when you're, were we even in college? No, we weren't. We were in high school. It was just like, it was a funny song. Yeah."
No.
Oh well.
Well, Aqualung as a character, and he kind of looks like Aqualung anyway. It's like,
yeah,
there's your dirty old man right there. So
right.
He kind of like put himself on his own path.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all right. Next, we have The Secret Language of Birds.
Okay.
So I haven't been showing Ian Anderson solo albums, even though there's some rated high here, because I can't find the CDs. And I don't know if I don't have them anymore. I definitely had Rupee's Dance in physical CD and Secret Language of Birds. But anyway, to me, this is a really enjoyable album. And we've got tracks here like the title track, Montserrat, Postcard Day, Set Aside, A Better Moon, The Habanero Reel, Secret Language of Birds Part 2, and Boris Dancing. Gosh, so many good tracks on here. And again, I would say this is his sort of coffee shop a more laid back, not folksy so much as just a little more singer songwriter. But I find that what he was doing was his voice was still pretty good here. There was some of that talk singing stuff that he's doing more these days. I think there's some of that here, but there's still plenty of actual singing, and of course the flute playing and all of that. So, so if you just like that sound, right, of what he does, it doesn't rock out too much at all, I don't think, but it's a good I don't know, it's a good lazy summer afternoon.
I remember this is one that I did get into and listen to a lot and very much enjoyed. I haven't pulled it out for quite a while, but so you're putting this in a very similar vein or Rupees Dance in a similar vein as this one. So that intrigues me more for that one that I wasn't as familiar with, because I very much enjoyed The Secret Language of Birds.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well then, let me know what you think of Rupees Dance. All right, here we go. Let's see what's next. We've got A Passion Play.
Yep.
So this, when you become a Jethro Tull fan, which anyone watching this it's going to happen. I really hope so. You'll have a good time digging into the storied history of this album. It was a disaster. Lots of pressure on the band to follow up the success of Thick as a Brick, which was this one song essentially across both sides of a vinyl record back in the day. I don't think A Passion Play originally started out like that, but it did end up like that. Aside from the spoken word, the story of the hare who lost his spectacles, which is a weird thing. It starts, so the music stops suddenly near the end of side one, and they start the story of the hare who lost his spectacles, and then the side ends, and then the story continues when you flip the record over, and then when the story ends, you get the rest of A Passion Play. So it's a little bit awkward, and some people really hate that. I don't know. I found it charming, the interruption and the story itself. It's a long joke, really, but I thought it was cute. And there's a video. They filmed a video for it. You gotta go out there on YouTube and look for the original video filmed of the story of the hare who lost his spectacles. It's hilarious. Now, A Passion Play itself, good continuation of what Tull had started on Thick as a Brick, as far as the long form stuff, the sort of mysterious, poetic lyrics, lots of instrumental showcasing, jams, cool stuff. This is it's a good album. Really, it's a good album. It's a classic.
Unpopular opinion, it's never been one of my favorites.
Never has been?
Never has been.
Wow.
I will listen to it every once in a while to just see, am I missing something? And I just can't get into it. I mean, I would. It's just, I don't know if it's the break, or his affinity for the Fulham Road, but because he seems to say that like 38 times in this thing.
Yeah.
Me anyway, but I don't know. It just pales in comparison to Thick as a Brick and some of the other stuff that they put out in this decade for sure.
It could be a little bit high here based on its sort of legendary status, if you will. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get listened to. For me, it doesn't get listened to as often as something like Rock Island or even Benefit. Mm-hmm. When you come down to like rating the album based on where I think it stands in the catalog versus that makes it high here, versus how often do I actually pull it off the shelf and listen to it, might be a little bit lower.
Well, there are certain albums that are great albums that take more work to listen to. You know, based on the structure, based on how they put it together. This lends itself to, and I've got a really, it's starting to get ratty vinyl copy of this thing that I pull out every once in a while, and this is probably going to make me want to do that again. But this is the type of structure for an album that takes more work, that you kind of actually want to pull it out on vinyl to have that original experience the way they designed it, where other albums are easier to kind of, well, I'm going to listen to a little bit and listen a little bit here. And it's a full album experience, which is heavier lifting sometimes than we're always used to or ready for.
True. I think I did have this on vinyl. I'm looking over there at the shelf and I'm not sure if I still do. But yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, we are in the top 10. Let's go to number 8. And it is Divinity. It's 12 Dances with God. So this is Ian Anderson's New Age album. Yeah. And I love it, obviously. It's all instrumental. And I believe the idea was that these were inspired by the traditions and whatnot of different religions. So there's a lot of the album cover has a lot of, I think, it's got various religious symbols on it. And again, I did have this as a physical copy, but not having it with me right now. But this is a showcase of his flute work, basically. This came out in '95. So I was done with college, but I could imagine this being a good like homework album, like an album you put on when you're doing homework. Yeah, I found it to be a relaxing and real enjoyable listen, and it's really high up on the list for me.
Well, it's great. I really love this album, and you're right. It does fit that that niche of albums that you can throw on when you just need music to work. And I do that. It is an album that I will throw that on specifically for that purpose. But that doesn't mean that this album is utilitarian, because, as you said, John, the flute playing is tremendous. And the thing that I appreciate about it is that the whole idea, the concept of exploration with religion, it's just not, it's more than just, oh yeah, we're just going to throw a bunch of names on that reference different religions. He takes the time to actually explore the music around those religions. I mean, the most obvious example for me is track, I think it's track 7, In Defense of the Faiths, where it starts out with this huge, heavy church organ sound before it goes into the flute. And it just immediately goes, yep, he's going in the Christian tradition here with that, almost 16th century sounding pipe organ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does a good job of that. There's, some more Eastern flavored stuff going on. For those, he's got that more African experience on there. And what's amazing is that we're almost describing what some people might consider like a disjointed experience, but it isn't.
No, right.
Yeah.
It somehow holds together in a way that you almost don't expect it to.
Yeah. It's really, really good, and it really is an amazing showcase for what he does with the flute.
Yeah.
Okay, number 7 is Crest of a Knave.
Okay.
So this is pretty high for me, and I think I already told the story of why. I mean, this was the album available when I became a fan, and so I just played this thing out. I mean, you couldn't really wear CDs out back in the day, but if you could, I would have wore it out.
Mm-hmm.
Great tracks on here. Say what you will about Steel Monkey, but I actually love that synth bass way that thing opens up, that, or almost like, no, it's more like a piano, but it's obviously not a real piano. the da 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 da. That oh man, that's just a cool, and the guitar rips in on that. And again, silly lyrics, right? Some people, the lyrics are a little, they're what they are, but musically, to me, that song's a bit of a jam.
Yeah.
And I know that song gets criticized quite a bit amongst fans, but then you've got things on here like Farm on the Freeway, Jumpstart, Budapest is amazing.
Which is a top 5 Jethro Tull song for me.
Absolutely.
I will throw on Crest of a Knave specifically because I know doing so, I'm eventually going to get to listen to Budapest.
Yeah. And I even, Said She Was a Dancer and Dogs in the Midwinter. I don't know. This still hold up really well for me, those songs.
Yeah. And of course, this album lives in infamy because this is the album that Tull won the Grammy for.
The hard rock
and
heavy metal.
And it really stinks because I think that really tarnishes the reputation of this album. Because people look at that and go, oh, they scoff at it because it has kind of like the medieval album cover, the medieval font on there, and the kind of that kind of vibe. And oh yeah, heavy metal, whatever. That sucks. They suck. It's like as much as I like Anthony Bourdain, I really hated when he would go on a show and rip Jethro Tull. Specifically, his rationale was, but they took the Grammy away from Metallica. I'm like, dude, have you? Yeah, I'm not going to speak ill of Bourdain but I think that's an example of a lot of people's reaction to this album in general, and to an extension, Jethro Tull itself, the band. So it really stinks.
It's unfortunate.
Yep. So for those of you out there that have maybe not given it a fair shake because you've heard those kind of criticisms, please check it out. I don't know. It has a special place in my heart. All right. Next we have Stand Up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Second album. Yeah. 1969.
Yep.
And this has got, the flute rendition of Johann Sebastian Bach's Beret that gets talked about a lot and has stood the test of time. But for me, Nothing Is Easy. Wow.
Yes.
So, 2003, I want to say. So Jethro Tull was already, how old by then? 30?
Oh, yeah. It was
35? 35 years old? The band was 35 years old. And Rich, you and I were at the, wherever that is, they do the Pacific Amphitheater where they do the Orange County Fair, I think. And they opened with Nothing Is Easy.
Yes.
And the place doesn't have a roof, but if it did, it wouldn't anymore after that. And we turned to each other and we said, they could walk off the stage. We could leave now. We got our money's worth. It was insane. They rocked the F out of the place on Nothing Is Easy.
I can't even remember who opened for them, but it's like, I think the opening band just might as well have just gotten into their cars and just drove home because.
But man, so this album, this is a good album. That is a standout track. Other standout tracks are We Used to Know, Reasons for Waiting. But I mean, everything. Back to the Family, Look Into the Sun.
Family's great.
This is a great album.
Yeah.
It's, I think we talked about this earlier today, John, that my top 3 Tull albums really haven't changed over the last 30 odd years. This is in my top 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where is it in your top 3?
Probably 2.
Okay. Have we seen your number 3 yet?
Nope, and you haven't seen my number 1.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have in your mind like your top 3, your top 5?
I'd have to wrestle it out a little bit in my own head. I might. We'll see when I see all yours how many I'm agreeing and where I'm going to flip them.
All right. Number 5, Minstrel in the Gallery.
Hello, number 3.
This is your number 3.
Yep. Absolutely.
Strange. I remember thinking of this as a pretty strange cover, but boy, and this album was a slow burn for me. Like I had to warm up to it. It did not used to be this high on my list, but my goodness, this is after the failed War Child, and for some reason, before the also failed Too Old to Rock and Roll. That's so strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
So strange that they put out a clunker, and then one of their best albums ever, and then a clunker. To me, it makes more sense if this was the album right before Songs from the Wood, right?
Yeah. Well, it's fun because they actually finished. They went clunker, Songs from the Wood.
Yeah.
Right. A weird.
Yeah. Great album. It's got a kind of a almost 17-minute epic on it of Baker Street Muse. That is a really good set of it's got on the track listing, it's got little parts that have the individual names within it, but the whole thing is really good. One White Duck / 0 to the power of 10 equals nothing at all. So good.
Yeah, excellent.
Just don't do that to a math major because they'll say, "Oh, that's not a true statement."
Yeah,
you can't divide by 0.
Yeah, you know? And then those 3 opening tracks: "Minstrel in the Gallery," "Cold Wind of Valhalla," "Black Satin Dancer." This is their heavy metal album.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of good hard rocking stuff on it, as well as still being really, Jethro Tull. So highly recommend that album. All right, let's see. Here we go. It's Heavy Horses at number 4. There it is.
Yeah.
This album is this is the middle of the folk trilogy, which is made up by 1977's Songs from the Wood, 1978's Heavy Horses, 1979's Stormwatch. I mean, they're putting out an album a year. It's crazy, their output. They kept that going for so long. I mean, they did an album in 68, 69, 70, 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. You have to get to 1981 before they didn't have an album out.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much high quality music we got from Jethro Tull in this 10-year period during which Heavy Horses came out. So just a stellar piece of work, and I wouldn't, it's weird how they get lumped into the progressive rock scene, but this is folk rock. Yeah. I don't know, and it's so good. Mouse Police Never Sleeps, Acres Wild, Moths, wow, One Brown Mouse, wow, Rover, title track, Heavy Horses, so good.
Yeah.
Where's this at for you, Dave?
I mean, it's right in it is definitely in the top 5. I'd wrestle with whether it's a 4 if I want to go higher. I kind of jump back and forth, but I mean, the title track alone, Heavy Horses. I mean, I love that song. We talk about, what's a representative song for Jethro Tull. Some of the time, Heavy Horses comes up for me as a thought. I love it. Yeah.
Now, Rich, this isn't part of your top 3 then.
No, it's not. And honestly, it exists just outside the top 5.
All right.
No, I that's not to say. All that being said, this album is absolutely great, though. I do like this, and I agree with Dave. Heavy Horses is so epitomizes what Jethro Tull is as a band.
Yeah.
Just the lyrics, the lyrics that he paints this incredible lyrical picture of, you feel like you're part of that English countryside. And it just works so well.
Yeah, totally does. Okay, well, if you know Jethro Tull, you know that what we've got left here, we've got 3 albums left, and they are going to be Aqualung, Thick as a Brick, and Songs from the Wood. But let's see what order we've got them in here on this list. Here we go. Number 3 is Songs from the Wood. 1977, comes out right after Too Old to Rock and Roll, which is all the way down at number 25 on this list. So again, Clunker, great album. Clunker, great album. And we've got, I mean, the title track is amazing. Another thing here is the production values and mixing on some of this stuff is so good. Like, this is a great sounding album.
Yeah.
So Jack in the Green, a classic. Ring Out Solstice Bells, Velvet Green, The Whistler. That's ridiculous. What do you call that? A penny whistle or something that is playing there? That's so cool. That's such a cool, like, riff, if you will. Penny whistle riff, right? We're gonna make that a thing. And then the P broke, cap in hand. Oh man, Fire at Midnight.
Yeah.
Good. So good. Must have. So, Rich, your top 3 so far is Minstrel, Stand Up,
and this one right here.
So is this your number 1?
Songs for the Wood is my number 1 Jethro Tull album. And if you ask me, I'll tell you, when I first started with my wife, she asked me what my top 5 albums of all time were. Songs for the Wood was on there.
Wow.
This album is that good. It creates such an incredible sense of place and sense of time with that folk, almost that medieval stuff. I mean, Velvet Green, that instrumental break, that is every Renaissance fair ever. It really is. To the point where when we used to take our kids to the Ren Fair, I would demand that we played Songs for the Wood driving up to the Ren Fair. I'm like, no, this is mine. You can't take this away from me, kids. Sorry. Song for the Wood is great. I mean, with the way the flute kicks in the middle of that, you don't even lie. I know you have, like, when that part comes in, you raise your leg like you're playing the flute when you're driving the car. I know I have.
Yeah, it is so good.
Freaking genius. I love this album so much.
That is great. Wow. So, Dave, high up for you as well?
Definitely high up. I'm not sure I'm going to glow about it quite to the same as Rich on that one. And I'd wrestle back and forth between, I think, even I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, as an individual song, Heavy Horses pulls me a little bit, but I think Songs for the Wood is more balanced. So I kind of like them at least sequence the way they are. I'm wrestling whether I would slide either of them higher up than our remaining 2, which are, uber popular classics in a sense. But it might be. I think it might be my number 3. I think that's probably a good spot for it.
Cool. All right. Well, here we go with number 2. And of course, when I show this to you, you'll know what number 1 is, right?
Well,
so
yeah.
let's just do them both. It's Aqualung and then Thick as a Brick. So here's number 2. But this one, which I also have on vinyl, I forgot to grab that. So good. But let's talk about Aqualung first. So, this is the classic rock staple, right? Yeah. That everybody knows. This is the Jethro Tull of FM rock radio. But yeah, you got a bunch of great riffs on here. You've got the great themes on here. You know, so you've got, I mean, so he tried to say this wasn't a concept album, but people have kind of said that each side of the album is a certain concept. Check this out. The CD proves it out. The top of side 1, do you see that? It says Aqualung above Aqualung. And then look, side 2 is called My God above the song My God. So
he was technically correct. He didn't create a concept album. He created 2.
Yeah, 2 short concept albums.
2 concept EPs that he just sort of went.
Yeah.
Right.
And it works so well. I mean, this was the Jethro Tull album that got me into Jethro Tull. You know, my older brother picked it up at a garage sale for like a dime, and we couldn't stop listening to it. So
it's just so listenable, really. You know, that there are songs. This is the one that has songs on it where my wife does not necessarily ask me to turn it off.
Yeah.
Cross-Eyed Mary, Up to Me, Hymn 43, Locomotive Breath. I can get away with playing those around the house. Even Mother Goose. Yeah. Gosh, this whole thing is just so good.
And My God is an absolute tour de force of Anderson on the flute. I think that is like, if you're going to like sit down and like convince somebody about Ian Anderson's flute prowess, you played that instrumental break for My God for them. And also just as a multi-instrumentalist, because the opening acoustic guitar part of that song,
that's him,
is phenomenal.
Yeah. And live, playing the My God live, that flute, that thing became a 4-minute long thing live, right? I mean, the song is 7 minutes, I think, on the album. But when you see live tracks, I got some live thing where he's doing My God, and it goes all the way out like past 11 minutes because that flute jam thing turns into a whole 4-minute thing.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he actually references a couple other songs in the middle of that jam.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the classic one. Gosh, Rich, what does that appear on? Is that on Living in the Past?
No, it's not on Living in the Past. It's on, I think it's on one of the special, like maybe the 20th anniversary box set.
Oh, let me see. Yeah. Okay, so I have that here. I have a lot of Jethro Tull CDs that are not part of this.
You're like, Jethro Tull,
that are not part of this countdown.
Yeah.
It's probably here. It's probably on the 25th anniversary. The Carnegie Hall, because it's right there. So I don't know. Yeah, it has an 11-minute, 10-second runtime.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thick as a brick. I don't know. To me, it's one of the greatest things ever. Other than the toll of FM radio, which I think I was being exposed to, and I think I was hearing already. This was really, Thick as a Brick was really my introduction to Jethro Tull. So it was sort of like, hey man, you're going in, we're throwing you in the deep end. And I just ate it up. And the way I first heard it was on vinyl with the vinyl record that unfolds into a full-blown newspaper.
Yep.
There's a crossword puzzle in there. There's a connect the dots in there. And of course, then there's the lyrics in there, but really funny articles, you know, all this fake stuff, but really clever, funny, humorous. And I just ate that up because I was pretty young. I'm, you know, barely in high school, maybe. I don't remember. But just the musicianship on this album is absolutely stellar. The creativeness that in the music. I mean, this is Ian Anderson kind of lampooning the excess and self-indulgent nature of progressive rock concept albums. And he makes like the best one.
Yeah, and he is on record of saying that. I do believe that this was a parody of the prog rock excess.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of funny because he releases 2 years after Yes apparently said challenge accepted and recorded Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Yeah. Which I can't hardly get through, but that's for another video.
Show, yeah.
Well, there you have it. So, Rich, you had mentioned something that is missing from the list.
Living in the Past.
Okay.
I know it's like kind of a hodgepodge of like new songs, live recordings, all this stuff, but it is, for me, a cohesive work that really captured a snapshot of this band's evolution from blues band to progressive band with folk influences.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some great stuff on there. I listened to this a lot. I actually listened to this a lot more than Aqualung and Things of Brick. Because I think it encompasses such a breadth of what Jethro Tull is all about.
Yeah,
and I think on the double album when it came out, side 3 is the live stuff that they did, and that piano jam that John Evan does, where there's parts where they just get into this like boogie with just him and the flute. And then toward the end of the song, they just spontaneously rip into the riff from With You There to Help Me.
Yeah.
That just gives me freaking goosebumps, man. So good.
Yeah. It is really good. So let's take a second to talk about just some of these non-studio albums, or lots of highly recommended stuff. So Living in the Past, highly recommended.
Yeah, and it also has one of the best Tull songs of all time, which is Life's a Long Song.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't get that on another album.
No, you can't.
Okay, this is essential then. Shoot.
Yeah.
I probably should have put this back on the list. When this was on that prototype list I sent out, this was what, right around 12?
Let me look.
Yeah.
I think it was actually lower.
This was around 11.
It's up right now, so bear with me.
Okay. This was around 11 or 12. So just take that into account while you're looking at the list here. Let me blow up the list here for folks. I took it off because I was like, well, it's a compilation album, but it does have essential tracks you're not going to get on other studio releases. So include this. Live albums. This was really their.
You had it 15.
Oh, 15. Okay.
You actually had Homo Eroticus listed higher than Living in the Past.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where it was. Like,
that must be, cause some of these I don't know. For me, those super old songs like Song for Jeffrey and Love Story those probably are fairly low rated. But
I'll say I love Song for Jeffrey, and I love that it opens with that.
Yeah.
It's like, Anderson doing some weird thing with the voice and the harmonica. It's just, again, it really captures, here's Tull's evolution from a blues band, from the This Was Their era, to Aqualung.
Yeah.
It's really cool stuff.
It is. And then I think also essential collecting for Tull fans, if you're going to dive in. Bursting Out is great. It's live and it just rips up. I want to say they do the full Heavy Horses on here. No, it's actually No Lullaby that they open with. That's what I was thinking of. That's a jam. Yeah, the way they open with No Lullaby on that is it rocks. And then I kind of flashed them for a minute, but the 20th anniversary box set and the 25th anniversary box set, also excellent. And these are what these came out when box sets first really started to become a thing, and these do it right. These are not collections boxed up of their studio albums. Just about everything on these is unique, previously unreleased. So lots of live tracks. The B-sides are collected, and also this this does do a little bit of like, well, here's an alternate take, but not a lot. There's a lot of box sets where, like the Beatles, there's a lot of those Beatles things where here's take 59, here's take 47. It's like, come on. No, these sets have a lot to offer that you're not getting anywhere else. That's really good. And then we talked about it a little bit with a passion play. A passion play was it's actually a kind of a rushed composition and recording after the sessions that they originally started with just completely fell apart. And that stuff was preserved and put together on this thing called Nightcap, which I believe I had to pay 30 some bucks for this. This is an import, I think. I don't know if it got a US release, but it's a 2-disc deal. And it is cool. And it's a collection of B-sides, but on one of them, some good B-sides on here as well. But then also what they call the Chateau Disaster tapes, which was how they originally started the follow-up to Thick as a Brick. So there's lots to collect or listen to. I don't know. I haven't even looked if this stuff's on Spotify. These boxes.
That doesn't even cover all the other stuff, because I know, like, back in the 90s when they would be releasing like extended EP singles.
Yeah.
They would have stuff that was like, there's one that stands out where it's like a spontaneous 4-piece or 4-song live jam session called the Dressing Room Tapes.
Yes.
And that's great. They do an almost acoustic version of Locomotive Breath on there.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's really great. And yeah, so the output that Jethro Tull did is just remarkable.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking up their discography right now to see if Nightcap is on there.
Yeah, and I didn't grab them off the shelf, but a lot of those CD singles, kind of EP things that were happening in the late 80s and 90s, I have those. They did a thing with Rocks on the Road where you buy one version of the Rocks on the Road CD single, and it actually was a thick cardboard box that opened, and it had a space for another CD. Then you had to go buy that CD single, and they both had the track on it. They both had Rocks on the Road on it. They were like their own CD single, but then all these extra tracks were unique to each disc. It was a money-grubbing scam, but I fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. And then speaking of money-grubbing scams, these are typically non-essential, except that each one of these has a non-album song on it. So MU, the Best of Jethro Tull, has a song on Rainbow Blues. These aren't worth like spending $50 or whatever it is unless you want to buy them from me. I'll sell them to you for $50. And then this one has this is Repeat, the Best of Jethro Tull Part 2, and it has a song on there called Glory Row. But anyway, maybe you can tell I love the band.
Yeah.
Dave and Rich love the band. There's a lot of good music here, folks.
Yeah.
There is. And I'm looking up. Nightcap is on Spotify.
Hey, all right. That's cool.
So definitely check that out.
People should definitely check that out. All right. I know this was a long video. Hopefully y'all kind of enjoyed it. Hopefully we were able to kind of share some enthusiasm for this. There's so much great music in this list. So much great music. So hopefully you can check it out. And if you're a casual fan, this inspires you to dig in more. If you're a hardcore fan, again, tell us where I'm wrong. That is totally acceptable. Us making this video was inspired because there's another YouTuber out there who recently put his list up there, and I was like, that's wrong. So it was like, okay, let's do our list.
You write all your hate mail to John, not Rich, not Dave. Thank you.
Is me. I love it though. I love the YouTubers that are out there covering this kind of music. I mean, this is there's a reason to be talking about this music 50 years later.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's so good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, then let's wrap it up. That'll do it, right? Rich, Dave, thanks for putting up with me on this. Appreciate your comments.
Just note that Dave has the right to reserve the favor when he goes through the Yes discography.
Oh
yeah,
man. Is that we're throwing a teaser out there, aren't we? I gotta get to work.
Yeah,
the gauntlet, one of the two.
It's whichever.
Yes.
Get that list ready. I'll have some comments.
I'm sure you will.
All right, everybody. Well, give us a like and a subscribe if you don't mind. And also, hit us up in the comments.
Ring the bell too.
And a what?
Ring the bell too.
Oh, ring the ring. I don't think there's a bell anymore.
You don't do the bell anymore?
I don't know. If there's a bell, ring the bell.
Whatever works.
All right.
You can't really do that though. All right. Night.
See ya.